My name is Sheri Hicks, and I go to Orchard United Methodist Church. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about a topic that was kind of scary for me as a kid to hear about. It's sacrifice. Sacrifice was a scary word when I was that little. You would hear different things, different people in the Bible showing their love to God by making sacrifices like killing livestock or giving up crops and even burning animals. I even remember a story about a father named Abraham who offered up his own child, Isaac, to God. Yikes! All that stuff sounds really gory to me when I was a little one. And as I grew older, I actually didn't understand the theology behind it. And today, I'm not going to share the theology behind this. I'm going to share my personal experience with sacrifice. I hope when you hear my story, you'll see how the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made for us by dying on the cross helps me to make my own decisions on sacrifice. I have now about 50 years life experience. Can you believe that? Because I can't. And I really see sacrifice as a way of life. Really, what sacrifice comes down to is giving something up and getting something else. That's it. Giving something up in order to get something else. Sleep is another good example. I don't know how many of you get enough sleep, but I read an article that was written by a professor at, I think it's Penn State, and he was saying that generally people feel better, and they're probably a better person when they've slept, 8 to 10 hours, let's say, 6 to 8 hours. If that's the case, he wondered, why do so many people not get enough sleep? Well, the reason he suggests is that most people, they do not have sleep as a priority in their life. He points to teens like you, and actually myself sometimes. We answer texts throughout the night, not getting enough sleep. Or maybe some middle-aged folks who are binge watching TV late into the night. They are making a sacrifice to their health and well-being by not sleeping. It's not a positive sacrifice. Instead, they pick Netflix binging over sleep or texting people over sleep. I'm just as guilty as time. I've actually made many huge sacrifices in my life that I could share with you today, but I decided to share with you the sacrifice that really I struggle with each and every day. Let me give you a little background. I have an autoimmune disease called scleroderma. I can hardly spell it and say it, but sclero means hard and derma means skin. And I can probably show you on my hands here. You can see how hard this skin is if I open my hands. You can even see, like, right here, I go back to regular skin. Scleroderma means hard skin. Some of the patients with scleroderma have real stiff faces. They don't need a facelift when they get older because they already have very tight skin. Unfortunately, your major organs like your lungs, your kidney, or your heart may also harden. Your body produces too much collagen, things that people are trying to get Botox injected into your face. I have too much. Anyways, I'm very blessed that my issues are not in my heart or lungs. They are in my digestive tract and in my hands. And it's actually very painful at times for me to do things with my hands. Fatigue, Raynaud's syndrome, dry mouth and eyes, calcium that grows under the surface here and has to be extracted with surgery, joint pain, and even if you look closely, I have no makeup on to show you, these little red dots on my face, it looks like acne, but it's not. It's called telangiectasia, and they're blood vessels that are being choked out by the collagen, and they rise to the surface. Well, I bet you're wondering, what does Sheri's disease, scleroderma, have to do with sacrifice? I have to make daily sacrifices in order to live the best active life that I can. Let me give you an example. Let's say some of my girlfriends are deciding to go to the mall next week. They're going to have a nice lunch together and just catch up. Well, for me, because this is flu season coming up, it's not really the best time for me to go socializing. Now, I'm not even talking about COVID, just the regular flu. You see, if I get the flu, it could be deadly. Now, I don't live in fear about that. But in a situation like that, I would say no to my friends, which is really hard to do, and sacrifice my time with them to save myself from possible complications of the disease. So that's my sacrifice. Here's another sacrifice I make daily. The inflammation throughout my body, people say that diet can help control some of those inflammatory symptoms. Well, currently I'm trying a vegan diet, but let me tell you, I am definitely sacrificing big juicy steaks, hamburgers. I am not vegan because I don't want meat. I am a carnivore at heart, I believe. But I'm making some sacrifices to get my body's disease under control. What gets really tricky is when you are faced with certain choices and you have to decide about sacrifice. I know you all have had these experiences before. I want to ask you a question. Do you think that there's a cost when you sacrifice? Well, I do. I think in this situation, I'm going to give you two different experiences. Let's say one is you outgrew a bike and you decided that you're going to give it to your neighbor's young child who can still ride it. Well, you don't ride that bike anymore. It's just in your garage, probably creating clutter. And that is something that you're willing to give away. That's scenario one. Scenario two is you have to go visit your grandmother at the nursing home. And when you get there, sometimes your grandma knows you, but sometimes she doesn't know you. And you are going to the nursing home this day when all of a sudden you get a text from your friends and they're meeting up to see a new movie, let's say. So now here's another sacrifice. You want to go see your grandmother. You know it's the right thing to do. She's getting older. But are you willing to sacrifice the time that you would normally go to the movies with your friends? So in the first scenario, was there any cost to giving that bike away? I'm going to say no. That bike wasn't even useful to you anymore. You couldn't even ride it. So giving that bike away, there was no cost to you. You were giving it away to make someone happy, which is perfectly fine. In the second scenario, though, there was a cost to it, wasn't there? You had to decide if you'd still go see your grandmother instead of hanging out with your friends. So you were making a sacrifice if you chose going to visit your grandmother. Sacrifice to me is not only costly, but it's also gainful. Now, I'll admit that this seemed rather odd to me at first, until I started thinking about Jesus. You know, after all, if a sacrifice is giving up something, well, then why would you expect to get something out of it? Wouldn't that be quite selfish? Well, even Jesus, when he sacrificed his life on the cross, was a gain. Not of his life, however. We know that it's the gain of our salvation, the salvation of his people. What we do now, he's already paid the price for. Now that gets into deep theological discussion, but I want to go back to the thought of sacrifice is gainful. It's not a pointless thing in my eyes. Sacrifice is for purpose, and usually the person who made the sacrifice gains something pretty good in the end. Now, this is not always true, because look at with what Jesus did. He was sacrificing for other people. When I make daily sacrifices to keep my disease in check, I gain time with my loved ones. I'm able to have strength to serve others, and I live a pretty full life. But when I make choices that tear me down either mentally or physically, I don't gain anything. That's not really a sacrifice. It's just making bad choices. So if sacrifice is costly and it's gainful, you usually gain something or somebody does, is it worthwhile? Well, sacrifice is a very personal decision that you have to make. It can be really tricky managing sacrifices in your life. And I know this is already happening with the life you're leading today. There's tons of sacrifices that I remember making as a teenager. What I believe is, even if other people are gaining from my sacrifices, it makes me feel better about myself. It actually makes me feel closer to God. Sacrifice without a purpose, to me, is just like something on the to-do list. You kind of just check it off. Maybe you need volunteer hours for school, so that's why you're making a few sacrifices. You know, really being sacrificial takes patience and endurance, commitment, and that's why I build a strong support system of friends, family members, medical people, pastors. You may even have coaches and grandparents or close friends that are your support system. If I didn't have the support system that I did, those sacrifices may not always happen. I want to close with a story about a fisherman. See if you can hear the sacrifice in this story or why it's very ironic. An investment banker ran into a local fisherman in a small town, and seeing the several large tuna in his boat, he asked the man, "How long did it take you to catch them?" The fisherman said it didn't take long at all. Well, the banker questioned, "Why didn't you stay out longer and catch more fish?" The fisherman said he had enough to meet his family's needs. When asked what he did with the rest of his time, he answered, I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take my wife out for an evening where I eat well, and then play guitar for my friends. I have a full and busy life." Hearing this, the banker offered the fisherman his help in creating a business so he could buy more boats, catch more fish, and eventually build an empire. This would require him, however, to relocate. But in 15 to 20 years, he'd be rich. The fisherman asked what he would do then, to which the banker responded, "Well then, my friend, you could retire. Move to a small coastal fishing town where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take your wife out for an evening where you eat well, and then play guitar with your friends." Do you hear the irony in that story? I think of this often when making life choices. You'll get to talk with others about the fisherman and the banker and the sacrifice that the banker was willing to make that the fisherman was not. I wonder what sacrifices you're willing to make to get to your point in life where you feel comfortable with different things. I'm curious if those sacrifices affect you and how you look at yourself or how you feel with God. Thanks. Have a great discussion. God be with you.
Hey everyone, I have a couple announcements for you today. First is that we are still collecting donations for the Brightmoor Thanksgiving, Christmas and Thanksgiving food. So come to our newsletter and check out how you can donate, and we also need some volunteers, so more information in our newsletter. We also are still spreading gratitude through our Instagram, so we would love to see all your lovely faces, record a video, and share what you are thankful for during November. So head to our newsletter for more instructions. And lastly, middle school and high school girls, we are still having Advent by Candlelight this year. It's gonna look a little bit different, but we are still gonna start the Christmas season off right. So save the date for December 1st, and we will have more information in the coming weeks. Have a great week, guys, and enjoy your discussion.